the cessation document has been prepared. So that's what we expect. I believe that unaccompanied minors are taken elsewhere, and I don't know where single males are taken, because that's not part of this requirement.
Another question I have is, you said that it's not going to be a really secured facilities where there's guards with guns, which does leave the individuals there to walk out if they choose. Maybe during the night, sneak out while nobody is watching. If that happens and they're struck by a vehicle or any incident should happen, it's like, well, they did where they were at the Serco facility. They did leave the premises. There was an accident. Now we're going to get a lawyer and we're going to sue the county of Jim Wells. Is that possible that could happen?
These are all great questions, by the way. I really appreciate you guys asking these questions. I really do. So a person could leave the premises, but they're not going to, I don't think, sneak out, because I mentioned we're going to have security. We're going to have 24-hour, 7 days a week security and video camera monitoring as well. So we will see people coming and going, if not by a guard walking around and seeing the premises. The person who will be looking at a video monitor will be seeing what's happening on the premises as well, and we'll have recordings of those, any activity, so we'll have that. In terms of the liability question, that question goes to the heart of a lot of the questions that we've had as well about what ICE expects from us. But what I will tell you is that in our discussions with the county so far, the government is going to identify, and has identified right now, the limitations of liability and any indemnification that could happen. Anything that is required by the government when they contract with Jim Wells County, we've already discussed with the Jim Wells County, we would accept that as a flow-down clause and assume that liability and that indemnification, if it exists, from the federal government. So we're not envisioning that Jim Wells County would be on the hook for anything. The premises would be operated by Serco, and we would have the proper insurance to cover anything that happens at the facility. You're right. People wander off. There's a train track across the street. People get hit by a car, hit by a train. Theoretically, bad things could happen. We understand that, and so that's why we're looking into that right now. But again, liability will be passed down from the contract that ICE has with Jim Wells County directly to Serco.
Another question I have is, are the citizens of Jim Wells or San Diego, Duval County, are they going to have an opportunity to fill out applications for this job, or is it Serco individuals or Serco employees that are going to be brought in to do the jobs?
Great question again. Serco does not have 200 employees or people waiting, of our own employees waiting to come to San Diego on Jim Wells County to work on the facility. So the intention would be to hire exclusively from the area. We will be advertising, if we're selected, we'll be advertising positions probably in both Jim Wells and Duval counties and the city of San Diego, the general area, to try to recruit people from the area. We actually have been talking with some individuals who are local for some of the senior positions. We are not intending on bringing in anybody from Serco to work here on a full-time basis to run the facility or to work in the facility. Again, they'd be visitors. I'd be coming periodically, and probably others would as well, but nobody's going to be moving from Virginia or anywhere else to come work in this facility and operate. It would be staffed and operated by local people. And we would have a training and orientation period that would happen for all employees, so that before the facility opens its doors, our people would be trained and receive the necessary certifications and approvals from any governing authority, whether it be for healthcare or for casework or education. So they would be certified and have what they need in order to provide the services that are required by ICE.
Another question I have, I guess, goes to the commissioners. Is there anything that Jim Wells County is paying for out of our budget that goes towards this facility? Nothing at all? Because we're broke. I guess that's all the questions that I have. Thank you. Thank you.
I guess at this point, I think some of the questions deal with expenses from Jim Wells County. And at this point, Jim Wells County is at no, there's been no indication that we're gonna have to pay for anything. But can you explain to the people what Jim Wells County could get out of it, other than the jobs and whatever else it brings by bringing the jobs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, we have not done one of these in the United States, but in our research that's been going on for several years, there are other facilities I mentioned, like in Carnes and Dilley and other places across the southern border, that have prison-type facilities, detention facilities, where ICE has been the contracting agency or the organization that has sponsored these facilities. And the contractual mechanism that they use to obtain the facility is something that's called an Intergovernmental Services Agreement, or an IGSA. Some of you and the IGSA, we have seen several copies of existing IGSAs that other cities and counties around the country have entered into agreement with ICE on to provide facilities again across the border. In those agreements, the company that's been contracted understands that there is some administrative burden on the county for signing the contract, managing the contract, and for processing invoices. Because think about it, if the contract is between ICE and Jim Wells County, and Jim Wells County has a contract with us, we can't invoice, for example, when it's invoice for our services, we can't invoice ICE directly, we have to invoice Jim Wells County, and they in turn would invoice ICE, who would in turn pay them, and then they would then pay us. So it'd be a three-party type of contract. In the existing IGSAs that are out there that we have seen copies of, there is an administrative fee that has been provided by the operating company out of their own fee to pay the county for their administrative time to do that contract and invoicing type of work. Based upon what we are currently planning, we are thinking that the amount of money that Serco would be reimbursing, as it were, the county for, and this is not final, you can write this down, but it's not final because it's going to be only final if it actually goes to contract. But we're expecting now that something between $90,000 and $100,000 per year, based upon the occupancy of the facility, would be fees that Serco would then, that actually Jim Wells County would deduct from our invoice and keep for themselves to enable them to help pay for their administrative costs to operate the contract and operate and process the invoices. But again, it's going to be dependent upon the contract that gets signed. If the contract gets signed, it's not anything I can quote you on, but that's the expectation today. And I'm trying to answer all your questions and give you the best answers that I can right now. The answers could change based upon what ICE does with the questions that they're being asked. But that's the best information that I have right now.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jamila?
Yes.
That's how you say it? Okay. Tigger.
Yes.
Wow, I got it right.
Good job.
Hi, can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. I'm here to speak in opposition of this family residential or family detention center. My name is Jamelia Tigner. I'm speaking on behalf of Raices, which is an immigration legal services provider with offices throughout Texas. We serve residents in the coastal bend, including Jim Wells County, through our nearest office in Corpus Christi. And Raices is part of the Cara Family Detention Pro Bono Project, a partnership with 4 organizations that provides pro bono legal services to mothers and children held at both the Dilley and the Carnes Family Detention Centers in South Texas. Last year, we provided services to thousands of families detained at these facilities, and it's through this experience that we have documented a myriad of ways that immigrant family detention centers are unfit for mothers and children. And here are just 3 examples. Number 1, there's a systemic failure to provide adequate medical care to children. When children in detention are sick, they've been told to simply drink water to treat any illnesses or ailments, And we filed 2 formal complaints with the Department of Homeland Security about these atrocious medical conditions, and we haven't seen any improvement. Number 2, children have been routinely left in the care of guards, and any parent would agree that prison guards are not appropriate caregivers for children. And number 3, there have been multiple reports of child sexual abuse and family detention. Multiple families have been sharing living spaces, which means that children share bedrooms with adults to whom they're not related, as well as non-related children of opposite genders. And just to give you a brief story, not long ago, one of our clients who had an 11-year-old daughter, they were both detained at the Carnes facility. Mom refused to sign the paperwork to be deported back to El Salvador, which was the country they fled to escape extreme violence. And later that night, the officials threatened to take away her daughter if she didn't sign the documents. So this type of manipulation and coercion is simply not an acceptable manner to treat mothers and children. And similar stories are commonplace in all 3 of the family detention centers that are currently in place, 2 in Texas and 1 in Pennsylvania. So as you can see just from these brief anecdotes, the conditions at the existing centers are terrible, and a new center run by a different company will be no different here. The future of family detention centers is currently tied up in litigation at both the state and federal level. In the coming months, it's likely that a federal judge may rule that detaining mothers and children in this manner is illegal. Also, in the coming months, a state judge in Austin may decide that Texas's new licensing regulations for these facilities are illegal. In November, our country may elect a president who's already promised to end family detention. And if this happens, the Jim Wells County community will suffer. Serco will abandon the community when it becomes too illegal, too expensive, or too difficult to maintain their investment, and jobs will be lost once again. No community should base their job growth on a volatile venture that requires human suffering for its success. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dr. Olivia Lopez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the court to hear me and allow for us to come here and say our piece. So, my name is Dr. Olivia Lopez, and I'm here really on my own behalf. I'm an adjunct professor at Del Mar College. I was previously licensed social worker at Carnes, the Carnes facility, Carnes Detention Center, which is a prison. It's called the detention center, but they are prisons. And so I have some unique experience that I'd like to share with you because this is, I understand that this is about jobs. 200 jobs is a lot of jobs, I get that. But the cost of it is more than money. It's a cost of your soul. It's a cost of whether you can sleep at night. And it's a cost about how you're gonna answer to your kids about why it's okay that we're imprisoning families and children, babies, little tiny babies. And so there's something to be said about that. I understand, like I said, I understand jobs are important, but people have to sleep at night and have to have a conscience. And what has happened at the Dilley facility, the Carnes facility, and the Burks facility have been things where people can't sleep. I still can't sleep after being at Carnes. And I still support women who have been detained and their children. So, the prison detention centers really are no place for women and children or women and families who have fled their home countries, namely Central America, to save their children and their families from gang rape, from torture, from human trafficking, from sexual slavery, from maiming, disfigurement, and murder. Some of these mothers have fled because drug traffickers will steal their babies, gut them, sew them up with drugs, and transport them here. Now, I don't know if you are mothers or anybody, mothers and fathers here, but anyone in this who is of their right mind would not tolerate that. You would do anything in the whole world to save your family, to save yourself, and that is exactly what these women and children have done. And they have come to the United States and have legally applied for asylum. It is a mechanism that our society has, and they have done it at great cost to their lives and to their children. So some of the issues at Carnes for sure, Dilley, Geo, and there's been some, as you mentioned, even at Serco and your facilities overseas, have to do with abusive guards, poor staffing patterns, lack of mental health services, poor water quality. For example, in Carnes where the fracking is happening, people can't drink the water. We're seeing this happen in Michigan where the water's really bad. The food quality is poor, there's sexual abuse, there's falsification of records to avert any auditing procedures. There are coercive tactics and suicide attempts and death. That's pretty heavy for 200 jobs. That's a lot of soul to go to bed with on top of it. Detention centers, family detention centers really are based on prison models where the training modules are complete with prison modules, prison language, detention tactics, takedown tactics, videoing people, isolation rooms. And so these are part of the module. These are part of the 2-week training modules that happen at CARS. Like I said, when I was at CARS, we did have 2-week training like you were speaking about, and it was all prison model. So, I mean, I'll be happy to talk to you about that if you like, my experience there. And so there's, like I said, there's more than a cost just on your soul. There's a cost to these women for sure. I'll talk about that in a second. So some of the costs to taxpayers, it costs money to detain mothers and babies who have been abused and severely traumatized. It costs money to do that. Dilley charges about $300 a day per person. They have a capacity of about 2,400 beds. So we do some kind of math. I took this down off the internet. So it's something like $263 million a year that they will earn from taxpayers to detain mothers and babies. I'm not sure what the facility will charge here, but the taxpayers, that's me and you that will be paying for this, to detain babies, mothers and babies and children who have really, really need our help. They don't really need our punishment. They don't need our punishment. So some of the other costs, the cost really to those who are imprisoned, are the re-traumatization of families. These effects are lifelong lasting. Effects with depression, PTSD, anxiety disorders, poor performance in schools, increased health problems, distrust of people who want to help, people who care about them want to help. How can they trust them after having been in a facility that do these things to them and for them in a country that wants to turn them away or put them in prison to try to save themselves and their babies? What has happened in these prisons is really tantamount to a loss of humanity that seems to happen in the face of 200 jobs or making good money in a county or counties that have been suffering economically to make money on the backs of women and children who have fled their countries to save their lives, to save their families, to save the last remaining family member in some cases. So these families, they really need a safe transitional environment, one that can really recognize what has happened to them and help them to transition to their life here. They have families here. They're not coming here willy-nilly. They all have families here. They don't want to go out into your community and steal something. They want to save their life and their baby. That's all, period. They're not interested in hurting anyone or stealing anything. These people are the most highly respected people. If you can think about coming from El Salvador, 2,000 miles walking with a baby, or 3 children by yourself. Yes. These are the strongest women I will ever know in my whole entire life. And really they demand a respect from our country and from our citizens to really help them to transition into something that is not a prison or a residential center where they really can't leave. If you can't leave, you're in prison. That's just how it is. So, thank you so much for your time.
Next speaker is Carla Perez.
My name is Carla Perez, and I'm here on behalf of the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, or MELDA, to urge this court not to enter into an agreement with Circle Incorporated, DHS, and ICE to construct a family detention center in San Diego, Texas. As you know, Texas is home to 2 family detention centers in Texas operated by private prison corporations, one in Karnes operated by GEO Group, one in Dilley operated by the Corrections Corporation of America. The women and children in these detention centers came to this country fleeing unspeakable gang and domestic violence. Thousands of faith, child welfare, medical, mental health, legal, and civil rights communities have advocated that these families, at minimum, be treated with dignity and given due process under law. However, little doubt remains that family detention contradicts our national values and hard-fought governing principles. Numerous women came at times allege that sexual abuse has occurred in the facility since August 2014. These allegations include riots removing female detainees the cells, and guards kissing, fondling, and/or groping female detainees in front of other detainees, including children. Consequently, MALDEF and others filed complaints in 2014.
That's good. I got it right? Good. Wow. That's good to me.
Good evening, Commissioners. I submit these comments on behalf of the American Civil